This is Samantha Sang with NextGen Policy. I am one of the policy advisors here, and with us today is Kristen McGuire from Young Invincibles. Kristen, can you tell us a little bit about your role over at Young Invincibles?
Sure. So I am the Western Region Director for Young Invincibles. We're a national policy and advocacy organization, and then I head up all of our work in California.
Awesome. Thank you. And today we're going to be chatting a little bit about the intersection of mental health and student debt. And so with that, Kristen, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with student debt, or what brought you into this work?
Sure. So I would say I always thought that student loans were going to be a necessary part of my journey. Um, Not for any real reason other than I'm a first gen college student. We were always raised knowing that we had to go to college. And one of the quotes in our home all the time from my mom was, I don't know how you get there, but you have to go. So my brothers and I always knew that's what we were going to do. I actually never knew that you could stop school at 12th grade.
Oh,
Um, the way we were raised, it was like, okay, when you graduate, what school are you going to next?
mhm.
So as we started to learn about how much college costs, um, I just always assumed we would have to take out loans. What I didn't know is that once we got there, of course, 18, first generation, I have clear memories of sitting in the entrance exam classroom for the student loans, and just signing papers, not really understanding what I was signing. And then fast forward 4.5 years later, I had taken out over $28,000 at a public state college, um, and I was Pell eligible, so the tuition was covered. Um, and I think I probably used most of it for basic needs and housing.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I think that that's a lot of the stories we've been hearing from other borrowers too, and especially for first generation college students. I think student loans has always been a pathway to help reach higher education, but unfortunately, I think the system has gone awry since we now have a student debt crisis on our hands. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share how much student loan debt you may still have with you.
Oh, sure. So it's almost doubled now after paying for about 15 years. So I owe, I think, 39, maybe 41,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, there's like pluses and minuses, right? Because I went through what I went through, I was actually able to give the information to my siblings who enrolled after me. So they don't have nearly as much debt, but I was absolutely um, the tester in the family. And so that's how that happened. There was also a moment where I defaulted, which added to the fees and the interest on my loans. So that also increased the balance. But I've been trying to pay or paying the entire time since I graduated.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I mean, you're not alone. There's nearly 4 million Californians, I think, in a similar situation facing that student debt. And even though I guess research wise tell us that Californians have one of the lowest average debt number, but I mean, anywhere between 30,000 to 40,000 does not seem like a little student debt. um,
I think also we know that, statistics tell us that nationally Black women take on most of the debt. And so I think I'm very representative of that for a myriad of reasons. But so even though the California national average may be a little lower, I think when you start to break it down by community, you'll start to see more and more stories that end up like mine.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and I mean, that's no small amount. And as you said, that's a lot to take on as the first tester in your family. I don't know if you want to share anything more about how that might have been impacting your life as you make decisions, or on your emotional wellness.
So there's a couple of things. I'm a parent. So I think around the time in my life where I was pregnant, becoming a mother, a new wife, there were some decisions that had to be made with our limited income we had. And so I think the important part of the story is like the knowledge gap, right? So when I'm calling my servicer and I'm telling them that we're having difficulties, I was never informed about income driven repayment. I was always told to, go on forbearance and deferments, and actually until I exhausted all of those options, and nothing was available. So that's actually when I defaulted. I was never told that you could make your payments based on your income. And so I would say, as part of like self care and really just trying to focus on what I had going on at the time, I just had to realize that I couldn't do it. And like I said, I think my story is very, very similar to thousands of people's story, where you want to repay this debt. You took it out with the intentions of repaying the debt, and then you can't navigate the systems to actually repay the debt.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think, I mean, this is a prime example of, as you and I know, there's a piece of legislation going through the California legislature right now, Assembly Bill 376 by Assemblymember Mark Stone, the Student Borrower Bill of Rights, which would hopefully help you get through this situation. And since you are aware of the bill too, I wonder if you could see and maybe explain a little bit how you think the bill would be able to help you in your situation.
Sure. So if we could rewind, and AB 376 was a law back then, there would have been the servicers would have had to help cure my situation in a way that benefited me the most, that made the most sense for me. So instead of information being withheld, I would have been told about income driven repayment, and I would have had payments that actually were affordable for me, especially while I was going through that transition in my life. That would have stopped me from the gap in payment. Also, had I been told about the loan forgiveness program, I could have possibly had a portion forgiven. I've worked in nonprofits since I graduated from college in 2005. But again, since I was not familiar with the programs, I was never in the right programs for my payments that I made to count. Actually, none of that happened till about 5 or 6 years ago, when I started learning about this through my current job. And so, what's really interesting about that is, if you think about this on a larger scale, you actually have to be involved somewhere around policy or student debt or higher ed policy to even know how to properly navigate student loan servicing. The majority of people are not. So it's almost like there's this secret information that a few people are working really, really hard to get out. But the folks who have the information, the servicers, are not required to tell us. So AB 376 would really help cure that, so that they would tell the customers, the consumers, us, the student borrowers, exactly what's available to us to help us pay our student loan bills down.
Thank you. Yes, most certainly. I think if only the bill had been in place, so many borrowers today, especially today, given the health crisis and the economic crisis that we're all facing right now, would have helped a lot of borrowers navigate this difficult time. So yeah, basic consumer protections, so that you know your rights as a borrower. Student loan servicers are doing quality service to ensure that you're going to be able to pay off your loans and not let it get out of control, I think is really needed right now. And thank you for sharing your perspective on the bill and in your experience. If anybody is interested in learning more about the bill, or what's going on with it, do you have recommendations to tell any young person or any borrower along their road of life right now how they could get involved to make sure that this bill gets passed?
Absolutely. So you can always reach out to me directly, kristen.mcguire@younginvincibles.org, and contact us about how to participate in state advocacy. You can also email your state senator and let them know that you support this bill. And you can also specifically, in the next week, email Senator Anthony Portantino and tell him that you support this bill. And before we wrap up, I just want to say that people who borrow student loans do want to pay back their debt. So when we talk about mental health and self-care, I think there's a lot of stress involved with understanding that you're about to take out a large amount of money that you have to repay. And people don't, the young adults that we work with take it very seriously. They don't take out these loans and then say, oh, I can't pay this. And I really want to push back against that narrative. It takes a lot of maturity to even decide that you're going to borrow money to pay for your education. And I think that we have to push back when folks say you shouldn't have borrowed the money or you shouldn't have gone to college if you couldn't afford it. Because we also know that a college education is the best way to start rising out of poverty. So I just want to make sure I say that while I'm here.
Yes, absolutely. Very important points. Borrowers are doing their end to do everything that they can to take care of themselves and to be the responsible borrower that they are trying to do. But I think we've seen time and time again, and I think you're a prime example of servicing breaking down and the industry kind of not holding up their end when they should be helping borrowers get out of debt.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone for joining us, and thank you, Kristen, for the discussion. Good luck to everybody, and certainly stay well as you are navigating your student debt too.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.